Tell us what you know.
I can tell you if I must, Vegas being where this crime takes us. For this is a sad story of lust, a lust for money as our wallets were filled with dust. Summer, the destined season, that seemed only fit for treason. On Route 66 for that exact reason, guided by the light of the sun. From fair McCountry we headed west, for in that town our money would only have regressed. Our morals would be put to the test, and our guard would be given no rest. I stay quiet, my eagle eye open, for I looked for flaws to spy, to find what made who tick or cry, or simply what made their brain fry. What I found was whatever skill was brought to the bank were skills that also made their souls sink. And to be frank, other than money, their morals were blank.
Tell us about your accomplices and their consciences.
So we meet Sarah now, a quite normal girl. Too happy sometimes, and talking with a whirl. She walks straight up with curls and a plain shirt. Sarah, the typical soccer mom flirt, is ready for anything at demand, her khaki pants and keys always in hand. She and her Volvo make everything sound. From Wegmans to Gap, she travels around, always making new friends along the way. Her loyalty to others never strays. Book clubs on Monday, her input is heard, and her baked goods are loved by all the herd. So I may criticize her mainstream wear, but her role quite important to this tale. Cookies in hand, she's ready to go. Now our story will continue to grow.
So she was the getaway. Would that not have been easier to say?
If this crime was easy to put into speech, it would be solved, I beseech.
There was a brain, the woman behind the operation who was intertwined. Strangers she had viewed below her. She had spent the last few years in a daze of stressful jobs until she received praise. She had a parent-teacher conference mentality. Others saw that as her great fallacy. We all saw her as very controlling, bossy, and all the while composing. Plans for our heist, she was behind it all. At book club, she and Sarah were friends, but together they struggled to make ends. And there they met the writer, whose lack of money made him lighter. She brought me, the three, and the Wiz together, a crew to rob a casino, no better.
Tell us about the writer, who is ironically our fighter.
There was a writer with us who knew the book 'twas read. For the character and plot, all came from his head. A master of plays, of poetry and prose. Any pen that he touched, words bloomed like rose. His mind was great, and so was his frame. His great size and great strength put all short men to shame. His stature was fearsome, as if he was a bear, yet everyone thought only his work was his care. He loved to scribe, yet his only real passion was to find ways to acquire more than his ration. A greedy young baron he was, stingy and vile, yet he'd get what he wanted with his command of guile. His nose was a hound, trained to sniff out cash. He only used people to lead him to the stash. Thus is the writer, who wrote words of such wonder, but all for the reward, enough to never be asunder.
What's the latest word on the computer nerd?
He was a lanky, slithering boy. Other than a computer, he knew no other toy. Now this boy, dressed in his lab coat, buttoned shirt, and khakis, had no flaw of ignorance. With his glasses, it seemed to me, he looked at the world completely analytically. Computer whiz he seemed to be. His IQ was no less than 130. However, with social conventions understood he could not. He became the miser of the neighborhood. He shut out life with such haste, he barely ever saw one member of the human race. With his mind alone he sat. His only savior was an online room in which to chat. Hours and hours he droned away, his life was empty, it's safe to say. Until one day a message came along, an invitation from a friend who had come and gone, inviting him to join our merry band. He left without even a suitcase in his hand. The only thing with him was his laptop, in which he could use to make the security cameras drop. This was his mission all the time. They planned not on even giving him a dime.
He was the one you betrayed? I guess your medley crew was worse than portrayed.
I have done what you said. Doing so has left some new friends dead. Now set me free before my lawyer has to make a plea.
Tell us about yourself, Mr. Informant. During all of this, you couldn't be dormant.
During this, I was the informant. To this, the crew was ignorant. paid off by you, the police, to ensure that we may have peace. Outside of crime, I like to visualize, like my friend the writer with words, but I like to digitize. I am friends with all mutually, as most people I meet seem to forget me. This gave me a lot of anonymity that allowed me to see life with much clarity. Though slightly introverted, many say I am positive. To many this is helpful, this is causative, and led them not to believe that I was a suspect, but someone to respect.
Tell us what happened before. Those facts we cannot ignore.
On the long car ride we devised a storytelling competition with a prize. Stories that would tell our morals and give ideas to past and present quarrels. Their brains would be the judge, and on this you would refuse to budge. The contest was to see out of the 5 whose morals may still thrive. The greedy writer knew he was the favorite and knew he might as well savor it. Unbeknownst to him, the whiz already had a story. This story was different as it was very deep morally. Now, telling tales may seem dumb and stupid, but it will help you with evidence that was refuted. The first storyteller to go was the writer. His fiery war of words would prove he was a fighter. In more ways than one, quick with wit, even though he was quite a big git. He started with, "So now my friends, lend your ears and listen well, for now such a terrific tale I would tell. There once was a lad new to the world of jobs. Unfortunately for him, his boss was well versed in Hobbes. He was a young novelist wanting to change society, and pursued his reformative goal with the utmost piety. He labored day and night in immense toil. He knew he would be loved, 'twas the greatest spoil. Many a day he did write, hunched over his quest. This work, such a challenge, his greatest test. After many an hour, and many a more a day, the work was finished, better than most would say. He showed it to his foreman, eager with joy, but his boss tore it to shreds, said 'twas by a boy. The lad's heart was broke, but his course was clear. All he had to do was make his boss pay dear. So alone to himself at night he said, "The only thing left is to see my foreman dead." He fastened his belt and prepared for war. As he collected his weapon, he crept out the door. He moseyed to the house where the job was to take place, unlocked the door, and crept up the staircase. He got to the top and beat up the cat. To the opposite go and snitched like a rat. He planned his attack, drew his weapon from his coat, leapt at his boss to slay him like a goat. He rushed his foreman with a steel-headed hammer. The force of the blow threw the boss in a stammer. The boss staggered and fell, straight down dead. The lad victory screeched and cut off his head. He went home to publish and sell his book to the masses. It was an instant success and made literary passes. Rich he became as his coffers grew deep. Money kept flying in, and he said his fame to keep. Yet despite his successes and newfound fame, his downfall was at hand, and soon it had came. One day at his desk, the lad sat down writing. When she kicked in the door, she prepared for fighting. "My name is Mrs. Rowling," the vivid girl had spoken, "and I want to inform you of my ideas you've taken." And she held out a copy of the book he had grown. The title read, "Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone." "I won't stand for this," the great Rowling shrilled. As the lad drew back, he found his spine had chilled. He fled to the corner where he cowered in fear, as the mad lady's wrath at him sent him near. He cried and he begged, and hoped he not to die. As he looked at her face, she said with a sigh, "It is such a shame that this had to be done. But an end must be written for the crime you've begun." As she spoke these last lines, she took out a bat. She ended them quickly, and that was that. However turbulent it was a tale, it was not nearly exciting enough for one male. The writer's anger made a great segue into the wiz's story that dealt with love and glory. And so the wizard's tale begins, at the house of a man with an empty heart. I feel I should warn you before we depart. There will be no daring deeds of heroism, just a computer whiz who had grown accustomed to living a life of complete solitude. And when it came to friendship, all hope he had screwed. Even though this whiz lived a life quite dull, he was the brightest computer scientist of them all. And with his brilliant mind, he created a way to end the loneliness in which he waited. Hours and hours of toil and strain went to making an AI. Alice was her name. Alice was the Wiz's only companion and friend, until one day she went rogue and tried to bring the Wiz to his end. The world seemed to crash down around the Wiz, that is until he met his next door neighbor Liz. The way they met was rather odd, I must admit. She heard the loud crying the Wiz began to emit. When the Wiz opened the door, she asked if the noises were coming from a baby. The rude words that followed didn't seem to hurt the lady, but her large heart was filled with compassion. At the sight of the Wiz, whose soul had grown barren, and all around him his life began to change, because for the first time he let friendship take the reins. The Wiz and Liz were a couple that no one could stop, and from the day on they met, they were never down on their luck. And when they grew old, the Wiz created a way in which the memories of them wouldn't become abated. And as a result of the genius's work, which was never just talk, the two new AIs he created began to walk. And when it came to the bots, it should serve as no surprise that Wiz and Liz were two bots that were quite wise. And until this day, the Wiz's creations help spread the same feeling of love that through Liz he once felt. After boldly telling his tale, he made a fatal error. It was good news for most, but bad news for the bearer. He had completed the script that he would have the casino security stripped, and thought that the job he did was great, but to us now he was just dead weight.
What you say? That you only meant well, 'cause you did. What you say? That it's all for the best, 'cause it is. What you say? That it's just what we need. You decided this. What you say?
Nerve-wrackingly, we approached the casino, hoping not to engage in an imbroglio. And obviously the time had come for you to come and make our freedom undone. But for the one who had remained quiet, the brain, gave us just a bit of hope, just a grain. All she said was,
"Are you guys ready?"
Hells yeah.
Hells yeah.
All right.
Everybody get on the ground. This is a robbery. We have guns.
So do we.
That was a bloodbath. Whoever calculated that heist forgot a lot of math. And the buffoon who released the walrus forgot that they're even more lawless. And the heisters of the Canterbury Casino who failed to remain incognito.
I hope it is not too late or ignorant. But what if my simple being is an informant? Was nothing more than a ruse that's only point was to amuse? What if I told you that the Wiz is far from dead, but wiring all of the money to his Swiss bank account instead? What if my seeming nature of being coy was simply a ploy, a decoy, to scam a couple of Class A suckaroonies much like yourselves?